Alex on his feet. He looks up and gives me a grin and says,
Hey dude, you too must be from Marin.
Marin County's A-OK, from Tam to Stinson all the way to MA. Fresh organic veggies in the market every day. The Dennis, Dylan, and NWA.
Welcome to the Run TMC podcast. That is the Run the Marin County podcast, a podcast about basketball in Marin County. I am Duffy Ballard, and with me today is Dave Levine and our trusty sidekick, Kenya Ballard. Dave is known as a coach, as an excellent set shooter, and as a basketball nerdling who is aspiring to be a basketball nerdlet. And he does not have a game later today, so he is going to be fully involved in this conversation.
Totally relaxed. A little disappointed that you didn't come up with a new word.
I went digging for the thesaurus, and someone had got there first. I don't know who yet, but I'm going to post a complaint on Nextdoor, and we'll see if we can dig to the bottom of this, Dave.
Would you say there was a dearth of words for you? A paucity?
A paucity, yes. A paucity of words.
Okay, listeners, if you have another word that would be a good synonym, send it in.
All right, I'm mulling this over, Dave. I'm sure I'll have a good word for you by the end of this episode.
I don't doubt it. Duffy did provide me some iced coffee, in case you're keeping track at home. And we're on episode 22.
Episode 22. This is a great one. We'll get to this in a little bit. Alex Pribble is back for round 2, and he's talking about coaching.
This was super fun. But yeah, first we're going to get to player control first, because there's a couple things we need to address.
Yes. Go for it, Dave.
Thank you, Duffy. First one, the famed Alex Pribble game winner against Marin Catholic. It was brought up in our last episode. It was also brought up in our Dan Dibley episode. And I mistakenly last episode said that was a championship game. Shame on me, Duffy. Shame on me. It was not a championship game. And Duffy, do you know how I know it was not a championship game?
I do, because I was on the text with Dan Dibley, and I also tried to tell you in the moment that I was pretty sure it was not a championship game.
Yep. Listeners, the reason it was not a championship game, or it should have been evident to me, is because it was in the Marin Catholic gym. Mm-hmm. And as we all know, the championship game is played at Redwood. So it was a great game, though, and it was an amazing finish by our guest, Alex Pribble, after a famed no-call from the great Larry Moyer. Daryl Rory brought up Larry Moyer a lot as well. So I apologize. I need to be better. That was bad form by me. And second player control is I just want to reiterate that it happened in the first Pribble episode. It happens again in this one that you will listen to. We lost Duffy's audio, which was very sad. But Duffy and I were communicating. He could hear us, but we could not hear him. So you can hear the clickety-clackety of my keyboard as I was communicating with Duffy to make sure I was going to ask the questions he wanted asked. And it's distracting, so I apologize. But I was able to hear everything that our fabulous guest, Alex Pribble, said.
I'm just looking here, Dave. Unfortunately, the Vandals lost to the Bengals, the Idaho State Bengals.
The Battle of Idaho last night.
Yeah, Battle of Idaho. It was a 5-point line, and the Bengals won by exactly 5 points, 64-59.
Yep.
So Vandals have had some good wins, though. They were on SportsCenter with a game winner against Sacramento State, I believe.
Correct. Yeah, they were the number one play on SportsCenter. Why don't we do? Pribb gave us a little update on the Vandals. Do you want to?
Let's do that now.
Let's do that now.
Yeah.
So we asked Alex for just a quick update, and he said, "You'll hear in this episode, it's a rebuild. He has one senior on his team, so it's a very young team." But here's what Pribb wrote us a couple days ago. He said, "Idaho update: first year of a rebuild, making some positive strides. Had preseason wins over teams from the Big West, the WAC, and the WCC." And started conference off with a big win over Sac State. That was a fun one with a buzzer beater that ended up as the number one play on SportsCenter. Sitting at 7-9 overall right now, lots of ups and downs, but with only one senior, we feel really good about the progress we've made and the direction we're headed. And then he said, just a little plug, really appreciate what you guys are doing. Just listen to Granucci's episode. So fun. Thanks again. Pribb is the best. And so now I guess they're 7-10 after that Idaho State loss. It was a good game, though. They lost by 5, I think. So keep going, Pribb. We're rooting for you, bud.
Yep. All right. Well, Dave, we have something really special for our listeners today. We are launching our first annual sponsorship pledge drive. So we're going to take a few minutes to celebrate all the work that goes into this podcast, all the behind the scenes details that we may or may not have spoken about on the podcast. So just give me one little detail that you can think of about this massive operation.
Well, Duff, I'm looking at you, and your hair and makeup budget must be unbelievable because you look so good for these podcasts.
Well, one thing we figured out just recently, Dave, and it's not really hair and makeup, but it relates because I'm looking at you, and that is I should wear a turtleneck or something that allows me to put the microphone very close to my mouth, and that you should wear something like a V-neck that allows you to bring the microphone farther away so that we can get our audio in sync, because that's been an issue for us. Player control. I'm loud. You're not. I've had a number of people, like Dan Dibley has mentioned, in no uncertain terms, he is a much bigger Duffy fan than he is a Dave fan. Basically, hashtag more Duffy. That's the feedback we're getting. I think he's saying that to just poke you and get you fired up, and that it's really a Jedi mind trick. And in fact, he does want more Dave, but he just wants a focused Dave, a Dave that's not keeping things brief, a Dave that is going to really put it out there and get some sponsors. So
there we go.
Yeah. So we are, Dave, our sponsors. We appreciate all of our sponsors. They have been great, and they've given us great copy for our ads. And I know everyone likes to listen to the sponsorship component of the podcast, and I'm sure no one fast forwards over it.
Never.
Because we keep it light and entertaining. But we are looking either to renew our sponsors at a discount or add some new sponsors.
Absolutely. So tell us more, Duff. What are the options that our potential sponsors have?
Well, first, there's another little detail that goes into every episode. It's the small decisions start to layer up and become a lot of decision making. You can get decision fatigue. And this decision is whether we leave the door open for Kenya or whether we just allow her to come and be part of the interview from the beginning, or we keep her out. Today, she is lying by your feet.
She's literally on one of my feet. She's on a foot.
Yeah, and she's not gurgled her stomach or made any whooping sounds. So
no snoring.
Good job, Kenya.
Yep.
So Dave, we're going to do at least 8 more episodes. We're committed to at least 8 more, Dave. And that's going to take us through the end of the high school season, state championship. We're on for that, and probably into early March Madness. So that's at least 8 more episodes. There are sponsorship packages that are available from 4 to 8 episodes. Or if you want to get creative and go for more, then maybe that will entice us to keep going. And the cost, we have a package, Dave, and the cost will run from $350 to sort of whatever we can come to agreement on. But that would be $350 at the low level, and that is for the layup package.
Tell us about the layup.
Oh, I was going to ask you to tell us about the layup.
I'm happy to. I'm really good at it. First of all, we obviously want you to come to a 2-foot jump stop and finish strong off the glass.
Julian Nickel, are you listening?
That's right. So on the layup, sponsor is mentioned at the beginning and end of each episode, and the logo is posted on the Run TMC podcast website and tagged in any and all social media posts. Yep. Currently Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn, right?
Yeah. We just did a drill last night, Dave, 2v1. It's a good one. It's amazing, though. I really think you should score with 1 pass or less on a 2v1 at speed every time. And there should be no pause. Like, there shouldn't be one of these where a guy's standing under the hoop and then they catch the ball and have to go up. There should be no pause in the movement. And we have some really good fast break players, but yet a lot of pauses, 2 passes, no jump stop, 2 feet. and we're a pretty good transition team.
Yeah.
But I can tell you about the drill if you'd like, Dave.
I would love it.
Okay. So you start 3 groups, and you start one underneath the hoop, and then in the far 3/4 court, you have 2 lines.
Yep.
Coach has the ball. The coach will pass it to either line. They're sort of outside the volleyball lines, and that starts the break. As soon as that happens, the defender who's underneath the basket has to run out to the 3-point line and get back.
Yep.
So they're not just standing there waiting. The defenders has to be moving as well. And so we just said to the kids, you may have run this drill as well, that the goal is you go all the way in if you have the ball until the defender gets between you and the basket, at which point there should be an open pass. So take it all the way in, and if they come to meet you, then you pass. And it should always be at speed. If you're passing the ball, the guy should not be waiting for it.
Right.
So anyway, we had a couple that looked great, but most of them, I'd give them like a C to B-.
Well, in those fast break drills, kids do sometimes have the tendency to overpass or wait, and that takes away the whole point of the drill. The point of the drill is to simulate a game situation. You have a fast break, you have a quick advantage, but you're going to lose that advantage because everybody else is going to be running back in a game, right? So totally agree with you. Okay, should we go back to the sponsorship stuff?
Yeah, so the layup is a sponsor is mentioned, such as we often will mention, Jeff Skaggs, Nike San Domenico camps.
Right.
And their logo is going to be included on the website and posted with any social media. Dave does a lot of great Insta posting. And so that is pretty much the layup. There's no copy that we're going to be reading during the episode.
Correct. Next level, the mid-range jumper. A lost art, Duff.
You and I are both mid-range jumper guys, though.
I'm a good mid-range shooter.
When we play 10s, I think most of the listeners know 10s, also known as 7s. We often start with the mid-range.
Sure.
And sometimes we'll get up to 12, 13, 14, 15 makes in a row, and then someone's taking it on the chin.
Yes. So in the sponsorship context, think of the layup, but then we add on a 15-second ad to be read by your friends Dave and Duffy at the beginning of each podcast within the first 10 or 15 minutes. So you get the mention and the logo and the social media stuff, but then we also read some copy.
Yep. And Dave, I think making the case for why a sponsor might want to advertise with us, we're hyper local. Of course, we're a podcast about Marin County.
Yeah.
So if someone's listening to the podcast, they're probably either living in Marin County or have ties to Marin County.
Right.
Unless you're Phil Jackson and someone just sent you the podcast and you listen to about half of it.
Hi, Phil.
And we have, what's our total downloads, Dave?
Almost 8,500. We're 84 and change as of today, which is really cool.
And that's not episodes that might have been streamed, which we don't know.
Yeah.
But so that's the total downloads. And the episodes that have the most downloads, I think some of our guests are interested in this. They're a little competitive.
Sure.
So Mike Fulton, number 1, first episode. Episode 2 is number 2, Tom Poser and John Granucci. And then we jump to episode 7, A Basketball Family.
The Sayas.
With the Sayas. And from there we go to episode 11.
Rick Winter.
And then to episode 5.
Dan.
Dave Deneen is number
Deneen.
5. He's burping it up. There are several that are close. Chris Ballard, episode 6 is right there. So Daryl Rory, episode 8 is right there. Anyway, thanks to our listeners. And we have received a lot of great feedback on some of the recent episodes.
And then one other just sponsorship plug, and this is a 100% true story. I've had multiple people text me saying, hey, just went to the hub, had never been, but they went because of our podcast and they heard it and they loved it. So it works sometimes.
And that reminds me, I owe Rebecca one of our T-shirts. She's going to put it up in the hallway on the way to the bathroom.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, final sponsorship
Opportunity.
level.
Yeah.
Opportunity is Beyond the Arc, and that, Duff, is the mid-range jumper plus a 30-second ad to be read by the hosts at the beginning or the end of each podcast. or 2 15-second reads. So basically, just instead of the mid-range, it's more fulsome content.
Right. And as we know, Dave, we're not timing these ads. We're sort of ballparking it, and sometimes we end up talking about a sponsor for a longer period of time. Sometimes we end up interviewing the sponsor for like an hour and a half.
True. Very, very true. We have had, we've had Karen Horstmeyer. We've had Rick Winter. We're going to have more MBBA folks on. We've had Jeff Skaggs. So there does seem to be a correlation between our sponsors and our guests.
Yeah. So if you're interested, reach out to us by any number of means, but you can email us at the runtmcpodcast@gmail.com. That is the runtmcpodcast@gmail.com. If you have our direct digits, feel free to reach out. We have a package with some more detail that we can send you. And
you could send us a DM on Instagram at RunTMC Podcast. Reach out to us. We're happy to chat. We're very responsive. And I do, by the way, I want to acknowledge there are a few folks who have asked for T-shirts. Our T-shirt inventory is low, but we're working on replenishing that. And the T-shirts get great reviews. They're very soft, very comfortable, very stylish. So I haven't forgotten about you folks who have sent me messages on Instagram asking for T-shirts.
And you know who looks great in a Run TMC T-shirt? And I've seen him in the gym now several times wearing it.
Johnny Kearns.
Rocking
it always.
Yeah. Great guy. Fashion model. Now, he's the guy I should get for my hair and makeup.
That's right.
Okay. Well, do we have anything else to say about the inner workings of this? All I'm going to say, Dave, is that in this upcoming episode, we are soliciting some endorsements. So you'll be listening to Coach Pribble, and then you're going to get a little splice of something.
Ooh.
And so I know that we're going to have Angela Ballard in there. I think we might have Dan Dibley in there.
We might.
It's possible we'll have Katie Levine in there.
Maybe.
We'll see. Might have a little Tom Poser. So we will have little nuggets that are going to break up the interview.
Can't wait.
I'm here with Run TMC podcast webmaster Angela Ballard. Angela, what have you been working on this morning?
Well, I've been updating the website, adding new episodes, new pictures, making sure everything for the sponsors is all set up and working well, keeping things going because I know Dave Deneen needs that.
Right. Apparently Dave Deneen cannot listen to the episodes without the webpage, so you are crucial to his listening success.
I understand where he's coming from.
Yeah. You also added the clip of Drake and MC.
Yeah, I update the show notes. Like if there's a great YouTube video, it's cool to add that. So you can find some interesting things on the website.
You sure can. It's beautiful.
Yeah, thanks.
And how much do you get paid for this work?
Yeah, maybe nothing.
Is that true? Nothing. Okay.
Currently, I would say that is the case.
So as part of this sponsorship pledge drive, maybe we could get you a dinner or two, perhaps at maybe Jack in the Box?
Well, maybe we could upgrade to the hub.
Oh, yeah, great idea. Let's upgrade to the hub. Okay. Well, if this is successful, we'll have a nice dinner at the hub.
Okay. Thank you, sponsors. I'd really appreciate it.
This guy walks into a little recording studio and sits down. He draws the eyes of all the locals of this small town. He looks damn normal to me. Thinning, grayish hair on his head. 1988 Converse cons on his feet. He looks up and gives me a grin and says, "Hey, dude, you too must listen to Run TMC podcast." Hey, guys, this is Luke from the band Stroke 9. Thanks a lot for using our song as the official song of the Run TMC podcast. We are very appreciative to have renewed fame in the area. It's been kind of crazy walking around with my t-shirt on and people coming up and recognizing me. That hasn't happened yet, but I think it might at some point. Hopefully it's someone besides my mom. I just wanted to thank you guys for all the work you're doing on this podcast. I'm a huge fan. I love all of the banter. Duff and Dave, you guys are hilarious and incredibly knowledgeable about basketball, and all the guests have been incredible. Just waiting for that call to talk about my basketball experience, but
I guess you guys don't have my email address. Speaking of which, I also sent over that licensing deal that we had discussed before the podcast launched, and I'm checking my account. I haven't really received any of the royalties that we had discussed. So if you could shoot those over, I'd greatly appreciate it. And everybody keep supporting the cast and all of the sponsors. Talk to you soon.
So,
Okay, let's get on to episode 2 of our discussion with Alex Pribble. Here we focus on Pribb's coaching career, and this was great. The only downside again was that we didn't have Duffy's audio, but loved talking to Pribb about his coaching career and his thoughts on leading teams and coaching style. So give it a listen, and then we'll catch up after real quick.
yeah, such a good guy. It's type of, I mean, I would have loved to play for a guy like Alex Pribble. He's just modeling a amazing human being on top of someone who is a dedicated gym rat who just loves the game. So
Totally.
yeah, wish him nothing but continued success. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him someday coaching in a Final Four.
Totally agree.
Yep.
Okay, here we go.
All right, take it away, Pribb.
All right, so now we're doing episode 2 with Coach Alex Pribble. He's so kind of us. He's literally about to get on a bus to go to a game for the Vandals. So the fact that he's doing this is amazing. Pribb was going to read the part of the email that you sent us. You've already kind of mentioned some of it, but I just want to, if you'll indulge me, because I just thought the way you wrote this was so great. So when we were going back and forth with Pribb about being on, he wrote us this. He said, "Believe it or not," this is Alex's words, quote, "Believe it or not, my hoop story began at the Fairfax Pavilion with the Saturday morning hoops workouts, playing pickup ball in the outdoor courts, pirate camp, playing local CYO, playing adult summer league, all the things you guys have discussed on the podcast already. I have a signed wooden pyramid of success in my office that the Saya family got for me when I was in high school. They are special people. Every step of my coaching journey has been impacted by Marin hoops. I got my start at the Tam High School coach the year after I graduated college and coached the first NBBA travel teams during that time. I've been very intentional about recruiting Marin kids because I believe culture and love for the game is an undervalued trait in recruiting. My first opportunity to recruit was San Francisco State, which meant recruiting a lot of walk-ons. Nick Calcaterra, Joey's older brother, was one of my recruits there. My first recruit at Eastern Washington was Jesse Hunt, from Drake, Dan Hunt's son. One of the first recruits at St. Martin's was Brandon Kenilvort, Drake, in College of Marin, Steve Kenilvort's son, followed by the great Lukey Chavez, along with our associate head coach, Dave Granucci. At Seattle U this past year, I recruited Will Heimbrot, and I was the first to offer both Jace Butler and TT Carr from Branson. I'm not listing these players to show my recruiting resume, but just wanted to illustrate how Marin hoops has impacted my life. So I thought that was awesome. Brought a tear to my eye, Pribb. So let's talk about your coaching. So you go from this amazing playing career, you walk on at Cal. What a great story. You get a scholarship. Now you're an adult, you're a working stiff, and you start your life at Tam. You're a young guy at Tam. You're in your early 20s, right? When you're coaching at Tam?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. So I appreciate, just backtracking for quick. So I appreciate you kind of reading the email. When we were going back and forth and you guys were talking about me hopping on the podcast, I had listened to a lot of your episodes already just because I love it. Whether I'm going through a little workout or I'm driving into work in the morning, I love throwing you guys podcasts on because honestly, like there's so many great stories about Marin hoops. And it really has been, it makes me think about all the different ways that the Marin hoops culture has impacted my life. And there's no way I would be a Division I head coach right now if it wasn't for the Marin players and that I've coached and the Marin coaches that I've worked with. It just feels so right to be able to talk. I've done a number of these podcasts for the coaching world or these Zoom in the coaching world, but this is by far and away my favorite just because it hits home.
Hey, Chris Ballard here. And yes, Dave Levine is a friend and Duffy is my brother, but I can say objectively that I'm a huge fan of the Run TMC podcast. Having covered basketball around the country, I'm not sure I've come across a podcast like this or even an information source that is this hyper-localized, but so in-depth. The perspective you're getting, the updates you're getting, and the people you're hearing from. It's essentially like a living history of Marin basketball, past, present, and future to a certain extent. It's such a cool thing they're doing. I know they're putting in a lot of hard work, and I now live in Berkeley, and I'm just so glad I can still feel tapped into it. The interviews are great. The guests are great, with the possible exception of Tom Poser, but we'll forgive them that one. And it's just such a cool community thing. So I'll keep listening. I hope everyone else keeps listening and keep supporting the Run TMC podcast.
So
That's awesome.
in any case, yeah, I was at TAM for 3 years. And yeah, I was young. So my first year out of college, I was a graduate assistant and earned my master's degree from Cal, and then went to TAM right away and got, like a lot of these things, man, I feel like I was very fortunate, right time, right place. But it was the summer, and I was trying to figure out exactly what I was going to do post college. My brother was teaching there at the time, and they lost a coach and a PE teacher 2 weeks into the school year. So right away they were scrambling, and my brother called and said, "Hey, I might be able to get you this gig at the last minute." And so I ended up teaching high school students, as a 23-year-old. And
Yeah.
then 2 weeks into the basketball season, Mike Evans, who's a phenomenal coach, couldn't come back from Europe in time for the season. So they were scrambling to find a coach, and they said, "Hey, would you want to take over?" So got really lucky, found a teaching and a coaching job right out of college, was there for 3 years, and just kind of, cutting my teeth, trying to figure out how to become a coach. I loved the game. Wanted to be very organized, had good coaching role models, but was by no means a good coach at the time. Just wearing my emotions on my sleeves, trying to figure it out day by day. But that was an important part of my coaching career for sure, those 3 years.
So I'm interested in I asked Chad this question too, because Chad Stewart was San Marin coach as a young guy in his early 20s. I'm interested in how you chose your assistants. So you got all this great experience, but you're young, right? And so when you're trying to figure out who's going to help you out, do you want to have some gray hair on the bench beside you? Talk about how you approach that.
It was easy for me, man. My brother was there with me, so it was
okay.
Hey, come work with me, and let's do this thing together. And that was great. He was kind of, as he has been in my life, he was kind of that guy I could lean on. So if it's like, "Hey, am I doing this right?" I could just ask him, and I would completely trust the response from him. And I actually brought over one of my college teammates, a guy named Eric Vernisel, who's from Chicago, who was trying to figure out what he wanted to do post college. So he was great as well. I wish I was maybe as mature as Chad at the time, that I could put a lot of thought into bringing in the great Pete Donoff and Bo Potts and some of the guys.
Exactly.
But it wasn't like that for me. It was all so last minute. I got the job, like I said, 2 weeks into the season. And so it was just getting the guys I could to come and get on the journey with me. But now building a coaching staff is probably, a brand new program up here at Idaho. Without jumping ahead too far, building a coaching staff is one of the, if not the most important things you can do.
I mean, I imagine, and we, I saw it because I'm friends with Steve Lavin. We've talked about Lav a lot, right? And, just now I went and saw USD play Stanford last weekend, and, you look at the bench, it's Tyus Edney, John Moore, who's an amazing coach. I remember from Lavin camps, Pat Sandel, Marin legend, one of my favorite people, Billy McKnight, and Steve's got people who not only he trusts, but who have different skill sets. Like Patrick Sandel, best defensive coach I've ever seen. Tyus, amazing offensively. John Moore, he's been really thoughtful about putting together that staff, and that's got to be hard to figure that out.
Yeah, we got to tell some Lavin stories at some point in time, because even though I don't have a direct, strong relationship with him, he's impacted my life a ton. I was always afraid to go up to those Lavin camps because of the rookie dance they had you do. I was like, I can't do that rookie dance.
Well, I'm just such a good dancer at Pribb, so that's why I was fine with it. But yes.
But look, building a coaching staff, and you have more resources at the college level to be maybe a little more specific with it, but it's a lot like building a team. You don't want 5 or 4 of the same people. You need to bring in people that are going to complement each other, that are going to cover each other's blind spots. Trust is obviously a huge part of it. And so, you need to bring in people that you can kind of go on this journey with, and that can make each other better. We do it, kind of the leadership style here is very collective, meaning we sit down every morning at a round table and talk about the practice plan and kind of build it out together. So you can't have a bunch of yes men around you. You need people that are going to speak their mind and be opinionated, and that you're going to trust, and that it's not going to be personal. It's not going to be about ego. It's just going to be about the team. And so I've been really, really lucky to build a strong coaching staff here at Idaho. And even before that, part of building the program we did at St. Martin's University was having great coaches around me there. So one of the guys from St. Martin's is actually with me at Idaho right now, Adam Ellis.
Oh, cool.
But the other two assistant coaches were Dave Granucci and Mike Hayward. And so Dave Granucci, it was the exact same thought process, right? A guy who I completely trusted from a basketball standpoint, and that I knew wasn't going to bite his tongue. He'd speak his mind, and a guy that I completely trusted. And so Dave was the head coach at College of Marin, had an unbelievable coaching pedigree of his own. So I was very lucky to get him up there to help me build the St. Martin's program. And then Mike Hayward happened to be up here at the time. He was living out this way. So when I was able to bring him on board too, it's just, I felt so fortunate to have guys around me that were in it for the right reasons. And we're part of this Marin coaching tree that's so strong, and guys that I just completely trusted.
Love it. That's great.
Yeah.
So talk about your transition you go from Tam to San Francisco State. I assume our friend Paul Trevor had something to do with that move.
It's all Marin, man. Sorry, Dave. I didn't mean to cut you off. It's so funny how it makes me think about these Marin, connections. But basically, I was the head coach at Tam, and I was loving it. And I could have spent my whole life there as a teacher and a coach in a great community, and absolutely loved it. But I was spending more of my time practice planning than I was on my lesson plans. And so I was like, I probably want to try to go this basketball route if I can. And I was talking to somebody about it. It's a guy named Craig Snyder, who was a great basketball player and a phenomenal coach, one of our assistants at Drake. And I think it was Craig's birthday party, and we were out at Benihana's in San Francisco. And we're just kind of walking down the street after a birthday party dinner, and Trev wasn't there, but Craig or maybe one of the Granucci's said, "Hey, I heard Trev's looking for an assistant. His assistant just left." And so that's where it kind of piqued my interest. The next morning, maybe even that night, I called Trev and said, "Hey, are you interested in hiring a new guy?" And that was the summertime, and believe it or not, that led to my first job in the coaching, the college coaching world. So went from a really comfortable, great position at TAM into kind of taking that first jump into the unknown waters of college coaching. And luckily it was for a guy like Paul Trevor, who I could talk about for hours, but Trev's just, he's the best, man. I got really lucky to work for him for 2 years.
Just saw Trev. I hadn't seen him in a long time. We went, Granucci, Poser, and I went and saw Stanislaus play Dominican a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And at halftime, Trev's walking back from the locker room, and he looks up and he sees Granucci and Poser all the time, but he saw me and he just gave me this amazed look. He is just an unbelievable human. I mean, I haven't seen the guy in 20 years, and he remembers me. And he's just, his energy, passion, charisma. Yeah. There's a phrase I like to use with great coaches, a force of personality. And he has this force of personality. I mean, Pribb, you have that too. And you could just see that these kids just will run through a brick wall for him.
The thing with Trev, the phrase I always use with Trev is just he's genuine, right? So that personality, that force of personality, that's a great phrase. I'm gonna steal that from you. That is Trev, and it's always been Trev, right? So again, the beauty of this Marin deal is when I was at Pirate Camp and I was a fourth grader, and Trev was my Pirate Camp coach, he's sweating and yelling and bringing the energy the same for a fourth grade Pirate Camp championship, the same way he is at Stanislaus State or the same way he was at San Francisco State. So Trev is so genuine in his energy. He's so authentic in the way he coaches. And for those people that want to be coaching, I learned that lesson really early. I can't try to be someone that I'm not. I have to go about this in the way that's genuine to me. I can't try to be Paul Trevor. I can't try to be Doug Donnell. I can learn and soak up as much as I can from those people. But the only way you're successful coaching is to be authentic and genuine to who you are. And that's who Trev is, man. So he's just the best.
Totally. So how was that transition for you from high school coaching to college? I mean, you made the transition as a player from high school to college.
Yeah.
What was harder? Was it, I guess that's a 2-part question. Was it harder to transition coaching high school to college or as a player?
Well, that's a good question. I think coaching, from the playing standpoint, it was kind of just a day-by-day process, right? And I think Doug did a great job preparing me for it. So it was just trying to learn every day. coaching was very different, right? All of a sudden you have to start recruiting and you have to start scheduling. And you have, the film review process is completely different at the college level. The scout process is very different. So that was a big jump, and I had a lot to learn. Fortunately, I had Trev to kind of walk me through it those first 2 years and really help me out. But yeah, I think that college coaching jump was a big one. And, during that time of my life, to be completely honest, I think I was, 25 years old, maybe 24, 25 years old at the time. And those are transformative years. I was figuring out who I was post player. I was figuring out who I was post college. And so it was an important time for me to just kind of mature and develop and learn life lessons. And so leaving that comfort zone of Tamalpais and going to San Francisco State was great. And then I think probably the bigger jump for me was actually leaving San Francisco State, leaving this community, right, and going out to Eastern Washington and moving to the Pacific Northwest, which, now I've been here for 9 years. And if you would have told me at the time I wouldn't be coming back, I don't know if I would have done it. So it was a big step right there.
Yeah. Okay. Pribb, Duffy wants everybody to know that Angela, his wife, just delivered him a cup of hot coffee.
Thank you.
And for some reason, technical difficulties are precluding Duffy from talking. I am not muting Duffy, as Duffy is saying that I am. Duffy, we love you and we miss you terribly. And Duffy. Enjoy that coffee. Pribb likes some hot coffee too.
Absolutely. Cold out here.
Okay. So Pribb, you've coached, so you go D2 and then Eastern Washington. So making that move from SF State to Eastern Washington, as you talked about, your Pacific Northwest life begins, right? What was that transition like?
It was a complete restart, and probably a much needed one, just for me to, kind of continue to grow. Had to get outside my comfort zone and just live a whole new life, basically. I was very set up, very comfortable in San Francisco, in Marin. Feel like walking down the street, new people left and right. And now all of a sudden I move into Spokane, where the snow's up to my knees, and I'm working for a guy that I didn't really know at the time, in a level of basketball that I was unfamiliar with. So it was just a brand new start, and it was scary, and it was unbelievably important for me in terms of my growth. So got to start fresh in a lot of ways, and just grow and develop. I worked for a guy named Jim Hayford, who is a great basketball coach, kind of the polar opposite of Jim from the standpoint, of Trev, from the standpoint of Trev was the ultimate motivator and just guys run through a wall for him and wore his emotions on his sleeve in a great way. And Jim was the ultimate CEO, right? He ran it like a business and was extremely smart. Learned so much, both basketball and just in terms of how to run a program from Jim. So I had these two different kind of polar opposites, not in bad ways, but just they had different makeup in terms of the way they ran programs. So it was a lot of getting used to a new personality and getting used to a new system and just learning. And so it was a hard couple of years, but my second year, we won the Big Sky Conference. We had a kid named Tyler Harvey, who was the leading scorer in the nation. He ended up getting drafted by the Orlando Magic. And that, those 2 years and winning a championship at the Division I level kind of spurred the rest of my career. So it was very fortunate for that time.
What was the interview process like at Eastern Washington?
With Jim? Yeah. So untraditional, it's not, people can, when you're doing it like that, people can, they can run the interviews however they want. I've heard of coaches that make potential assistant coaches do scouting reports and sit them down for, I interviewed for one job where he had me do a personality test. Like, you can do it however you want. With Jim, it was very different. We were sitting in a City College of San Francisco's little loft doing recruiting, and Jim was really connected to San Francisco and to those guys. And we were sitting there recruiting, and Jim had just lost an assistant. Actually, it was Craig Elo, the great Craig Elo.
Oh yeah, from the Cavs.
Yeah, he had just left Eastern Washington, and we had a bunch of mutual connections, and we were sitting there at City College of San Francisco. And long story short, we had a great conversation. He actually said to me, this was his test. He said, all right, if you're interested in working for him at Eastern Washington, I want you to make a list of 10 people that I know, but that there's a connection to, that I know. You have to go do the research and find 10 people that I know that would recommend you to me. That was his interview process. He was such a unique guy. And so I did it. I sat down. He had a bunch of connections in San Francisco, and I had to figure out his backstory and the people that he knew. And there was a list of guys, that I kind of came up with and that were mutual connections. And believe it or not, 2 weeks later, I was driving up to Spokane, Washington. So kind of a crazy story.
That's very cool, man. So then you go from Eastern Washington, you go to St. Martin's, right? And that's a big jump because now you're a head coach at the college level,
Huge jump.
right?
Yeah.
And so talk about that move.
Yeah, I was 29 years old. I was 29 years old. I had just met 2 weeks prior to that. I had just met my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, Camille. And it was like, good news and bad news. Good news is I got the job that I really wanted. Bad news is that I'm moving away. And luckily she was a trooper and came out there with me. But yeah, we picked up and left Spokane, which was great to us for 2 years, and ended up moving to Lacey, Washington, Olympia, Washington, kind of the capital out there. And
Yep.
very, very small school, actually the smallest Division II school in the country, and a school that had really struggled. They had won 6 games the year before I got there. And just kind of a program in a tough spot, a beautiful facility, a nice college campus, but a very small school and a program that has struggled. And so it was a total rebuild, which was just a fun challenge, a fun opportunity. And, moved down there, started from scratch, built it up. And fortunately, we kind of got better year after year. And my third and fourth years, won 25 plus games and played in the NCAA tournament both years, finishing in the Sweet 16. So it was a great time of life, just kind of building my own program and figuring out how I wanted to do things there. And fortunately, had that Marin connection. No way we would have had the success we did if it wasn't for the coaches, Dave Granucci and Mike Hayward. And no way we would have had that success if it wasn't for Brandon Kenilvort, who was one of my first recruits there, who was a rock solid, kind of skilled big man, played at Drake, then played at College of Marin for Dave Granucci. And then the great Luke Chavez, who, was an All-American for us. We talk about Buck a lot, deservedly so. Buck's an incredible player, but if I have to take one, and people talk about Buck and Eddie Joe all the time, if I have to take one Chavez to put on my team right now, I'm taking Lukey. He is the toughest, most competitive young man I've ever been around. He's skilled, but the skill isn't what makes him successful. He's just a competitive kid who wills himself to wins, and is just a really unbelievable young man. So I had the pleasure of coaching him for 2 years, and he led us to a championship.
Love watching Lukey play.
Yeah.
Yeah, unbelievable. So then you go up the road to Seattle.
Yeah.
From St. Martin's, so from Lacey up to the big city. What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, so college coaching is unique, and you can set up shop and really invest in a community, and it's tough to know when the right time is to make the next step. And so after 4 years at St. Martin's, I had this group of kids that had come through the whole program with me. A few that started as freshmen that were there for 4 years, and then guys like Lukey who were finishing up after 2 years of junior college. And so we had 8 seniors my final year. And so it felt kind of like a culminating year where we went to the Sweet 16, we won a championship, and we had 8 guys graduating. So I kind of, looked at what was out there, and I was actually pretty close to coming back to San Francisco and working for Todd Golden. That was a big interview at USF.
At USF, sure.
Todd, yeah, and sat down. He and I had played together, and so I was about to coach for him there, met with the athletic director, was pretty close, came down to me and one other guy, and he ended up going with a former player, a former teammate of his with some international recruiting connections, which happens in this business all the time. He had a good connection out there. And so I was already kind of 1 foot out the door. And so at that time, Jim Hayford, my previous boss, had another position open up. And so I was 1 foot out the door at St. Martin's, thinking about working at USF. And so I decided to take that associate head coaching position at Seattle. Just another step kind of back into the Division I world, another step up on the coaching ladder. It just seemed like a good opportunity to move back to a big city and kind of keep moving forward with my life. So great 4-year stretch at Seattle U as well.
Very cool. And then finally, where we are now, Division I head coach at Idaho. Talk about that interview process.
Yeah, now that was a little more maybe formal, a little more like you'd expect. There was a search firm, I don't know how many people know about that process. There's search firms now that kind of do a lot of the organizational work for these interview processes. I heard there was 150 candidates, so there's a lot of paperwork to kind of sort through, and there's just a lot of kind of, background work that has to be done by these search firms. And so kind of went through that process with them, and had a couple different interviews, had a phone interview, had a Zoom interview, and then ended up doing a sit down in-person interview as well. It's at that level, they're not asking you to break down film or design practice plans or demonstrate any of your coaching prowess. They kind of just talk to you about what's your vision? What's your vision for this program? How are you going to build the program up? And so I'm pretty organized. I have a full blueprint of kind of the way I want to run a program, from everything from fundraising to academics to community service to to X's and O's, to the offensive system and defensive system. I was pretty organized with that. I think that kind of helped me during the process. And they were just looking for someone who had experience building a program. So Idaho has struggled the past 4 or 5 years. They finished last in the Big Sky for the last 5 years, and so it's kind of a rebuild, and very similar to the experience I had at St. Martin's. So I have a plan for kind of building this thing back up, and it's my dream job, man. I'm a head Division I coach, living in a great part of the world, of a really friendly community, and trying to build a program here with a special group of coaches and a special group of players. And I've been at it for about 7 months, and it's been the best 7 months of my life, man. I also have a 7-month-old son, so it's been a really busy time.
A little bit busy for Coach Pribb.
Yeah, but just it's been the best. So very, very fortunate.
Awesome.
Yeah, excited to be here.
Awesome. Okay, well, I know you got to get to a bus soon, so I'm gonna get to some. Want to nerd out on coaching for about 10 minutes with you, and then I'll let you go. But so talk about your approach to practice planning. So we've talked about how you've had these amazing coaches that you've played for and worked with along the way, and that's all kind of formed you have your own style, right? So talk about your approach to practice planning and kind of what are your like non-negotiables for your team.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's a lot of ways to do it, but I do think kind of the not the non-negotiables for our team, but the non-negotiables for practice planning is to be very organized. And I try to soak things up and learn from everybody. Your podcast with Tyler Gaffney was great. A lot of your coaches have been so great, but Gaffney, a good young coach that I've been familiar with, was talking about his organization. And the coaches that I coached against when I was at Tam, Bobby Donlin and Steve Campagno and Doug, like I'm sure their practice plans are very similar to mine, like, organized, detailed, intention with every drill you're doing, not a lot of wasted time. And so the way we do it here, I like to do a lot of which is kind of what we call whole part whole. We try to introduce things as a whole, try to introduce things, not necessarily 5-on-5, but the full picture of what something might be, and then break it down into parts and really train it and make sure that the details are there, and then get back to the whole again. So our practice plans do tend to have a similar format, meaning we like to get a lot of skill work early. We try to keep our practices fairly concise also. I think you were talking to somebody recently about, the hour and a half practices. And that's actually pretty similar to us. We practice on the court. They get 15 minutes to kind of warm up and get themselves going. They need to be on the court 15 minutes before practice starts. And then we go hard for about an hour and a half. It can change day to day, but about an hour and a half. And then we do skill work at night. So the guys come back in and they do an additional 30 to 45 minutes of skill work at night. I believe that individual skill development is a huge part of a coach's job, individual development in general, mental development and physical skill development. So that's kind of, not a great answer to your question, but that's a general way of how we organize practices.
No, that's great. So how about mix of scrimmage versus drills? I mean, I mentioned this in another pod, but I went and saw Tim Lacoste at Dominican, women's coach at Dominican, great guy, awesome coach. But it was interesting because I've heard this trend where basically they would do a warm up, get stretched, get loose, and then they got right into 5-on-5.
Yeah.
And then it was kind of a controlled scrimmage, right? But it was right into, they were going. And I've heard this, a couple coaches mention this. What's your philosophy on that?
Yeah, I definitely see the value in it. You hear a lot of people talk about it. There's the Chris Oliver basketball immersion guy who preaches this stuff all the time. And there's a lot of people that I think are on that train. And I agree with it. I think you need to play a lot of 5-on-5. I think you need to get up and down, but I don't think you can have kind of broad strokes. I think it depends on the time of year. It depends on the context and what you need to be working on in that moment. So, right now, the day before, we're getting on a bus to go play Utah Tech, we're not going to scrimmage for an hour. It's going to be much more detailed. It's going to be scout oriented. So a lot of the preseason practices are going to be a whole lot of 5-on-5 or small-sided games. I think for us, that's actually really valuable. A lot of just the 3-on-3 breakdowns and the small-sided games to create some advantages or disadvantages. And in coaching, what you get is what you emphasize. So if your team needs to get better on the glass, you need to compete and do rebounding drills through competition. If what your team needs to get better at is transition defense, then you need to scrimmage and play some sort of live drill that emphasizes transition defense. And if you emphasize those things and you focus on those things, that's what your team is going to get better at. So a lot of different ways to skin a cat with this stuff. But I think you need to identify what you want your team to be good at, and you need to emphasize those things.
How do you approach in terms of scouting? Like, what is the best way to impart to your players what you want them to gather from a scout, right? Because we can sometimes inundate players with too much information and it gets lost, right? So how do you distill it down to what's kind of the most important thing for your players?
Yeah, it's a big challenge. I remember we talked about Doug Donnell and his coaching, kind of setting up for college. Like, he used to give us these in depth, detailed scouting reports that were great. And we had to study them and learn them, and diagrams and the whole deal. We've kind of backed off from that a little bit. We actually, at the college level, spend a ton of time on personnel. It's a big emphasis for us. So we can go in depth with player tendencies, player strengths, player usage rates. So which specific players are getting up the most shots and are having the biggest impact on their team. And we can take away those strengths. And we feel like if we can do that, if a player likes to go right, 75% of the time, we can really force him left and take away some of his strengths. If a player likes to, get to his step back when he's going left, or get all the way to the rim when he's going right, we can talk about taking away player strengths, making shooters drivers, making drivers shooters, just putting players in uncomfortable situations. So scouting reports focused on personnel is a big part of it. And then, the reality is it's all film. We're doing a ton of film work. So a five-page hard copy scout is kind of lost on these guys now. We'll give them, 1 page of personnel details, but everything's done through the phone. We have apps on their phone that they can pull up the film and watch everybody from personnel tendencies through their actions, whatever actions we want to show our players. And then we get on the court, we show it to them on film. We get on the court and we talk about exactly how we want to guard specific actions or how we want to attack certain defenses. And that's kind of our process for scouts. So we always want to provide our guys with a competitive advantage out there. I have a great coaching staff around me that takes a lot of pride in the prep work, in the scouting reports. And that's a big part of what we're doing here. Beautiful.
Pribb, want to do a time check? How much time you got?
We got, 15 minutes or so. How's that work for you?
Sweet. 15 minutes. Awesome. Okay. I want to talk about recruiting. So we talked about your recruiting journey as a player. You mentioned,
just recruit all Marin kids. That's just
all Marin. That's the strategy. There we go. We and kids, Pribble likes candy. So just give him some C's candy and you're in. So Tom Poser actually asked a good question, sent it into us. He said there are a lot of recruiting services out there for players. What do you think of those? Like, are they useful? Would you recommend that? I guess broader question. What would be your advice to a high schooler who wants to get recruited? How should they go about it?
Yeah, I don't, not to speak poorly about, recruiting services, because I know that's, people put a lot of time into those. I don't like them personally. I believe that recruiting is relationships and recruiting is connections. Kind of like I talked about with my playing journey, having Doug and Barry Kleiman reach out to Ben Braun and Louis Raynaud. That's actually the way I recruit here as well, that there's specific people that I really trust. And if those people call me and say, hey, so-and-so would be a good fit for you, I would take that much further than a general recruiting service email. So I think it can be a little bit tough. It depends player by player, but anyone that takes the time to read even just a personalized email talking about, what maybe the connection is to Idaho, or what the connection is to our coaching staff, or why they think it would be a good fit, the personalized touch, we'll respond to all those. We respond to every single email that's personalized. But if we just get a general email from recruiting service, that maybe they have emailed 75 coaches on, we're not, we don't take those as serious.
Gotcha. So what do you look for in players? I mean, that's a dumb, broad question, but I'm just curious. What are your kind of hot buttons?
Question, man. It's a great question. So I think about it like a pedestal. 3 legs on a little pedestal, right? So there's 3 sides to it. The first it's kind of a non-negotiable. The first is academics, right? So a lot of coaches, I think college coaches, kind of shoot themselves in the foot because they'll spend 3 years recruiting a kid and the kid's not going to qualify. So the first thing we look for is, are they academically eligible? Are they the right types of students to represent our university? So that's got to be there in order for us to recruit them. The second side is skill set. And actually that's a little bit easier to recruit than you'd think. You can go to these tournaments and evaluate, and you can, if you're looking for certain types of players, you can go and find players that can pass, dribble, shoot, and are certain kind of have a length to them or a size to them that you're looking for. There's a skill set that's kind of a a baseline skill level that's kind of a non-negotiable. And then the third level, or the third leg of the stool for me, is actually about character and competitiveness. If a kid is not the right character, is not going to represent our program the right way, we just don't recruit them. And there can be a lot of things that impact that. Social media can impact that. Talking to their coaches, talking to people in their network, in their circle. If they don't have the right type of character or love for the game as part of that also, we don't recruit them. So we recruit a little bit more specific. Some people will just, recruit very generally. If the kid's good enough, they recruit them. That's not how it is for us. It's academics, it's high character, love for the game, work ethic, and then it's that skill set. So that's kind of the way we think about it. You need to have all three of those things in place for us to really recruit you hard at this level. And so again, it kind of ties back to Marin, truthfully. Like, that's why I've recruited so many Marin players, because if Jonas Honeck calls me up and says Victor Rajkovic is your kind of guy, I'm taking that very seriously. If Rick Winter calls and says he's got a guy, or Brock Winter calls and says he's got a guy that's played in his program for a long time, you should take a look at him. I'm going to listen to him. I trust those guys. There's a lot of people in the Marin landscape, obviously Doug, but a lot of people in the Marin world that can call me up and say, hey, I think you should take a serious look at this kid. And I know that they're going to check out from a character standpoint. I know that they're going to check out from a love for the game and competitiveness standpoint. And so I think you build a program with kids like that, and you have a chance to get better and to improve.
Awesome. Great answer. Very thoughtful, as we would expect. Okay. So to wrap it up, let's give the Vandals a little plug, the Idaho Vandals. So what's you guys are 5-4, is that right?
5-4. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. It's been good. It's been good. It's a brand new deal, right? So there's a lot of ways to try to build a successful program, especially in today's day and age with the transfer portal and some of the things that are going on. You can try to flip a roster really quick and bring in a lot of grad transfers, and maybe have a good year, but then you got to restart the next year. And for us, we've kind of taken the approach of trying to build something from scratch that's going to last. And so we only have one senior on the team right now. Everybody else is a junior or an underclassman, and we're getting better and better and better. We're 5-4. We're coming off a 30-point win over Pacific in the WCC. Coming off a big win over Cal Poly. I think we were up 30 in that game also. So We're starting to get a little bit of momentum. We're starting to roll a little bit. But you have to go through some lumps early in the year, and you have to learn some hard lessons. So, we got thumped by my old school at Seattle U and Washington State. We took a big loss there. And, played a couple of tight games. We're 5-4, but we lost 2 one-possession games also to Northridge and to Denver. So I think we're getting better. I know we have a young group of guys who are about the right stuff. The work ethic is incredible. I walk into this beautiful gym every day. I think I get here at 6:30 or 7 a.m., something like that. And every single morning there's players that have beat me into the gym that are already getting shots up. When
That's
I
awesome.
leave at night, there's always guys in the gym getting shots up. So when you have a roster built on guys like that, the Luke Chavez's of the world who just love the game, you're going to get better. So I feel really good about the direction we're moving. I'm sure there'll be some more highs and lows as we try to build this thing up, but I think we're moving this thing in the right direction.
All right. I'll be rooting for you against my Stanford Cardinal on the 17th of December.
There we go. I appreciate it.
Okay. A Duffy question. You ready, Pribb?
Let's do it.
Do you know how the Vandals got the nickname?
Well, I know the story, but I want to hear Duffy's answer first. Is there a specific one, or is there?
He wrote, they go by a name earned nearly a century ago by a basketball team coached by Heck Edmondson, whose team played defense with such intensity and ferocity that sports writers said they vandalized their opponents.
That's right. It's funny. I know I should know that Duffy's familiar with the sports writers giving the nicknames. My best friends in the world, I think I spoke about it earlier this morning, but my best friends in the world were my teammates from a very young age, and so these guys I played with at St. Rita's and White Hill and Drake all the way through. And believe it or not, they were also the writers for the Jolly Roger at Drake. And so
nice.
They would give us all nicknames. Yeah, they would be doing that. So anyway, the vandalizers came from the school. Yeah, from the school newspaper for sure.
Beautiful. Okay, Pribb. Quick truncated crunch time. Coaching edition.
Love it.
Favorite drill, favorite team drill as a coach.
Favorite team drill. You know what there's 1,000 of them. I would love to just talk hoops.
Yeah.
You know what's not done enough, in my opinion, is straight one-on-one. So you pick a specific closeout that happens in a game. Maybe a kid's in a ball screen coverage and he has a long closeout on the opposite wing, and you make that skip pass and a kid has to close out, and whatever your principles are, force baseline, force middle, have a stick hand up, whatever it might be, kids need to learn how to guard the basketball one-on-one. And it leads to, you can put some limitations on dribbles or whatever, but it leads to good offensive advantages also. So I think if you want to be good defensively, you have to be able to guard the ball one-on-one initially, and that's not done enough in my opinion.
That's a great answer. And that's interesting because that's kind of my next question was your favorite individual drill. That's sort of a team drill and an individual drill, right?
It is for sure.
It's a twofer.
That works. Individually, I love some of the shooting drills you guys have talked about. We do the same ones. We do we call it Boston shooting. You make 2 from the corner and then you go to the wing, or 2 in a row from the corner, 2 to the wing, 2. It's the same stuff you guys have been talking about. Anything that's competitive, anything that kids can keep track of and continue to try to beat their scores. We keep our shooting drills, our high scores in the locker room, so the guys are constantly competing against each other. But anything that's game speed, game realistic, and has a little competitiveness to it, I think are great individual drills.
My personal question, and your shooting drills, are you guys mostly shooting threes? I mean, I guess for your guards, or are you drilling mid range ever?
We drill a little bit of everything. I think in today's game, obviously the analytics are going to tell you to finish at the rim and to shoot those kick out threes. And we're very 3-point heavy. We like just the style of players that we recruit. We have 5 shooters on the court a lot of the time. So we do drill a lot of threes, but in our individual breakdown. So every one of our coaches have a group of kids that they work with constantly. And in those individual breakdowns, we do a lot of mid-post work, mid-range pull-up work, just depending on how we're being guarded. We try to be efficient from every area on the floor. So without nerding out too hard, offense to me is about creating advantages. That's all it is. It's spacing and advantages, and then those advantages leading to great shots. And so, we'll post up our guards, we'll put our bigs out on the perimeter, we'll invert the offense however we need to be able to put two defensive players on the ball and generate a great shot out of that advantage.
Awesome. Yeah, we've just interviewed Kevin Vasquez, who's one of the assistants at Redwood's, great guy with his son Jake, who's the best player on Redwood. And he said something that was really astute. I thought he's like, on offense, when you gain an advantage and once you've lost that advantage, it's really hard to get it back.
That's right. Yep.
So you got to kind of take advantage of that advantage that you have. Okay, last.
Sorry, Dave. I was going to say we kind of call it dominoes or scramble mode, but that's great offense when you create that when you generate that advantage and the defense is now in rotations. Great defenses are great at scrambling and covering up those advantages, but great offense, that ball's popping around, the ball has energy. But especially at this level, man, you can't pass up a good shot. So if you have created an advantage and you make that extra pass and you have a good open 3, if you pass up that shot trying to get an even better shot, that defense is going to recover. So that dominoes effect where the ball's popping around, that's fun basketball for us.
Yep. Okay, last 2 for me. Favorite coaches to watch: college, pro, high school. Don't say Denellen. We know Denellen's great. So
I honestly mean this. I soak up lessons from coaches at every level. I really did. I was sitting down taking notes from your Gaffney podcast. I was sitting down taking notes from some of the, from the Josiah podcast. Ashley's such a good coach. Mike's such a good coach. So every level, everywhere I've been, I'm soaking up a lot of lessons, whether it's podcasts or Zoom interviews. I follow everybody on Twitter, trying to soak up new information. And there's a lot of different platforms to learn from. For me personally, I really like Buzz Williams, who's college coach. And he's been good for me because it's more holistic. It's not just X's and O's. It's about positive habits and routines that will help you be successful as a coach. Basketball wise, man, there's so many good coaches. I love what Nico Medved's doing out at Colorado State right now offensively. But there's good coaches across the board. One of the best parts about scouting reports is you do scouts on all these teams and you're like, I like that action. I like that.
Ooh, I'm going to take that drill or that play. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Constantly learning. For sure.
Hey, the best coaches are the best thieves, right? Yeah, exactly. Okay, last one.
I've heard you say that a lot, and I love that phrase. But really, that's thieves is part of it. But really, that's what great people are doing is they're constantly learning, right? Whatever environment you're in, if you're watching people and you can put your ego to the side and you can just say, hey, that's good. I should, make that change in my life, or I should pick up that drill. I think that's how you keep getting better.
Totally. Okay. Last one. Duffy has asked, will you please come meet with the Archie Williams team in the team room?
Anytime, man. As long as my compliance director gives me the thumbs up, man, I would love to do it. But that team room is so special, man. I would love to walk back in there.
Good, Duffy. Pribb says yes. Okay, Pribb, this has been amazing. I mean, we could, like we say a lot, but truly mean it. In this one, we could keep talking for hours. Might have to have you for episodes 3 and 4. Good luck. Duffy shares a big thank you and says to, with respect, go vandalize Utah Tech.
There you go.
Dude, it's just so fun to talk to you, man. I could talk to you for hours about hoops. I love your passion. Thank you for supporting and listening to the podcast. Clearly, you've been listening on your elliptical journeys or wherever, walking the dog. Yeah. We're rooting for you. We love what you're doing, and you're an inspiration. You're a legend in Marin. So thanks, buddy.
Thank you, Dave. Well, hey, man, this is completely my honor. Like I said, I've done a number of these Zooms and podcasts now, just from the coaching standpoint, but this is by far and away my favorite because I genuinely mean it. Like, Marin hoops has shaped my life in so many different ways. So if there's ever anything I can do to help out Marin players, Marin coaches, Marin people, I would love to find ways to give back to this community. So thank you for what you guys are doing. I think it's a special platform you're creating here, and the Marin basketball community deserves it. So thank you guys both very much.
Hey guys, Dan Dibley here, first-time caller, long-time listener of the Run TMC podcast, and I absolutely love the pod. And thank you, Duff, and thank you, Dave, for doing it. Great to hear from the legends in the past and hear all the stories come out. And also nice to be able to keep up with the young people playing today in the MCAL with all the updates and the correspondence reports and all the rest of it. Being somebody not in the county any longer, it's good to get those updates and be able to keep tabs on what's going on. I look forward to another couple of dozen or more of the great interviews. And I admire all the sponsors for chipping in and be a part of it, because that really is the backbone to everything. Great job, guys. Keep it up. It's a good community podcast. I'm a diehard listener, and I can't wait to hear more from you guys and all the great interviews. Already, I've loved the Fulton, the Skaggs. You had Michelle Bravelli-Smith, various Granucci's, and so many more great interviews. And I look forward to hearing more from you guys in the coming days. Keep up the good work and keep it rolling. This is Dan Dibley from 95.7 The Game saying, great job, fellas.
All right. Well, thank you, Coach, and thank you also for the support we got from our listeners and our support staff chiming in during that interview. Good stuff. But not as good as the interview itself, Dave. I think we can agree on that. So, quick take. What do you like?
Yeah.
What sucked?
Nothing sucked. Well, the only thing that sucked was you not being part of it, Duff, and my clickety-clackety keyboard. But I loved it. I could have talked to Pribb for hours, as we always say, but truly mean it here. A couple things that jumped out at me. First of all, when he talked about recruiting, I thought that was insightful, and he referred to it as the pedestal, kind of the three-pronged things that they look at, right? They look at academics, they look at obviously basketball skill, kind of table stakes, but then the third one was, I think he said character, but he pointed out that social media behavior. So they're looking at your social media, and that jumped out at me as, so for kids who are listening, look, we're all on social media, and we all probably have posted stuff that we think is funny or stuff for our friends. But when you're a high school player looking to play in college, coaches, they're going to be looking at your social media. So if you have stuff on there that maybe is a little bit questionable, I would clean that up. It's just a good lesson. I just thought that was interesting that they look at that for sure. I also, on the recruiting tip, I liked that he talked about it's about relationships for him. And I mean, if it didn't shine through in this interview, you weren't listening. Like, Pribb is such a genuine, authentic person. So I'm not surprised that that's how he goes about his recruiting. And he wants to build a team of people who he trusts and values them as people. So relationships are really important.
That's life advice for you, Dave. I mean, right? I mean, that's
totally
not coaching. That's not just coaching. That's everything.
Yep.
So I think the farther along you get in life, the more you realize that, right? If it's easy to get caught up when you're younger with numbers, grades, that stuff seems really important, but and it is.
Yeah.
Do your schoolwork, kids. But yeah, ultimately, a lot of life is about relationships.
Well, and then also, he's so humble, and he's just a sponge, right? He wants to learn. So I love when he talked about, he's taken notes. Like he said, I took notes on the Tyler Gaffney podcast. Like he's learning, constantly learning, and that shines through. And that reminded me of our Rick Winter discussion when we were talking about Eric Spoelstra, who, by the way, just signed a $120 million contract with the Miami Heat. He's one of the best NBA coaches in the last 3 decades.
Maybe he wants to be a sponsor. Let's get some
Coach Spo, call us. But Spoelstra's, Rick told the story. They're at a restaurant and some guy said something and Spoelstra was listening. It's like, hey, I really like that, right? Or show me a good. Hey, we need a play to run we need a 3-pointer for Ray. Give us a play.
Yeah, curiosity and observation.
Right? Totally. And then the last thing, you said it in the intro to this episode, but the whole thing I was thinking the whole time with Pribb, I really would want my kids to play for him. First of all, I would want to play for him. But like when you think about coaches who I'd want my kids to play for, Alex Pribble is absolutely top of the list. Yeah. Just what a guy. Could not think of someone I root for more than Coach Pribb. So pulling for the Idaho Vandals. Agree with you. I can't wait to see where he takes that program, and maybe that's a stepping stone to another program for him down the line. But keep your eyes open for Coach Alex Pribble. He's going places.
Yep. A small note, because I'm looking through the notes I took during this interview when at some point I could only hear you and not Alex, and I could not be heard.
That's unfortunate.
But at minute 58, 22 seconds, I got a reprieve. Angela delivered hot coffee to me. Mm-hmm. So thank you, Angela.
We mentioned that. We gave you that.
Oh, you did? All right, good. All right, good.
Yeah, gave you some love on that product.
Yeah, all right. Well, thanks. I got recognized one way or another. So we do want to thank our sponsors, and for those that might be interested in sponsorship, thank you for listening through the pledge drive, and reach out to us by any number of means, Instagram, direct message, theruntmcpodcast@gmail.com. Hit us up on our website, theruntmcpodcast.com, and or come stop by and have some iced coffee, and we'll get a deal going.
So speaking of that, upcoming, we already have a great one for next week with Coach Jonas Honeck, which was a really fun discussion. And then we have a few more scheduled that are awesome. So we're excited for the next couple weeks here of guests that we're going to share with our listeners.
Yeah, Doug DeVore and Josh DeVore.
Doug and Josh.
Carrie Husbands.
Adrian Payne.
Yeah, formerly Carrie Barrett.
Yep.
And just working on yesterday, Jet Russell and Will Venable, who played together at San Rafael High.
And Major League Baseball star Will Venable.
Yep.
So yeah, going to be really fun. And then we have another list of people that we've been reaching out to and have reached out to us. So we'll keep it going. Thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you. All right. This has been the Run TMC podcast. That is the Run the Marin County podcast, a podcast about basketball in Marin County. Thank you for listening.
Burke's on his feet. He looks up and gives me a grin and says,
Hey, dude, you too must be from Marin.